Welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Moneca.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to episode 4 and 5 of season 5 of Lower Decks, A Farewell to Farms, and Starbase 80. I think that should have been the Halloween episode because that was creepy. So let's get into it because in these two episodes, we're getting to know a little bit more about the universe that we are taking place in. We get to see more of the Klingon homeworld, and we see them as farmers. We get to see an old friend that we haven't seen since last season, and then the season before that. And then we get to go see a little bit more about what makes Starbase 80 tick or not tick, whichever is the correct version for that. So let's get into it. Let's do our initial reactions. Moneca, what did you think of these two episodes?
Well, I realize we're halfway into the final season of Lower Decks, and I'm like, whoa. But this isn't grabbing me like last season, and I'm hoping there's something bigger here to come because I think about we're halfway in, and now we have these two interesting stories, but they're not as amazing stories as we had last season. And I feel like something was missing here. And then I realized at the end what's missing is for me was T'Lyn. T'Lyn was missing from episodes 4 and 5. And I was like, oh, that's the quick wit I'm missing. And I really gravitated towards that character and I've loved her. And so although these two stories were interesting, Mariner has definitely found her footing. Boimler is a much better place than when he started in this season. I was highly disappointed in the writing there, but he's growing into his beard and things are coming along. It was nice to see more of the Klingon homeworld. What do you think about these two episodes?
So I quite enjoyed it. I have to say, I enjoyed it more on the second watch than I did on the first watch. On the first watch of episode 4, I clocked very early that this was going to be a Mariner pick up someone, like, sort of episode. And sometimes it's nice. I will say it was nice to see her be her crazy self for good versus her being her crazy self to like self-sabotage. Like, okay, Mariner, I'm seeing it. Seeing Boimler sort of just lose his fear and sort of go all in was also nice. But I enjoyed it more on the second watch than the first watch. I think with the first watch, I was just trying to like get it in. Then the second time I enjoyed myself. For episode 5, I loved Mariner in this one. She was the highlight of this episode because they are holding true to she wants to be better. She wants to do better. She is better. She's not the same person. And it's funny to see her act the same way, quote unquote, as the first season, but now she's doing it for good. So it was like it just sort of built upon from episode 4. We're no longer having Mariner backtrack and fall behind and do all these things and us wonder, will you ever get your stuff together? It's like, oh no, she actually wants to be better this time. So I quite enjoyed these episodes. And then also seeing the creepiness of Starbase 80. Did I watch this episode with my lights on? Maybe. Just maybe. I mean, if it scares Mariner, it's gonna scare me. So that's all I have to say. If it scares Mariner, it scares me. And we had a right to be afraid. Be very afraid. So let's go into a quick deeper dive of episode 4, and then we'll take episode 5 on the second half of this episode. In A Farewell to Farms, we are meeting Maha again, and he is from, I think, from season 2 or 3 when they did the lower deck episodes of the different ships from Klingon, from Vulcan. We met him there when he was on the lower decks of his Klingon ship, and then he took over the captaincy. And then we saw him again in season 4 when his ship was mutinied through the whole season arc of season 4. And now we see him back on his family's farm making blood wine because he has lost his captaincy. And we see that he is like telling his brother, I'm going to get back into the stars, like dress you see. And we see his brother's just adorably like a himbo, and I love it. But we get to that even though like he's on his home planet, he's still looking up to the stars because that's where he wants to be. That's where he wants to be. But when he actually has the chance to get back his captaincy, he's hesitant to do so. He doesn't want to move forward because he realizes with working with a team that was truly a team, he does not want his old team back because that didn't feel like one for him. So it was nice to see sort of a growth with him and see his relationship with his brother become more connected. What did you think of episode 4?
First, I want to say that our co-host from our season 4 Lower Decks reaction, Richard, was absolutely right. He said that we were going to see Maha again, and we did in this episode. So good job there. I did want to plug that for him. So it's also interesting to see, and we've seen this a few times throughout Lower Decks, characters that are moved up into leadership role and then struggle with that and then have to overcome. I mean, I think we saw that in our last recap of the last, first 3 episodes in the season with the admiral that went AWOL and decided to hide out in paradise. So, but in this case, Maha was struggling with really what to do with his next step in his career, and he retreated to his family, a common storyline. We invest so much into our career, our coworker family development, and so then we have these visions, and sometimes achieving that is not what we think, or sometimes we have to make sacrifices and other things like that. So he seems to be going through this like PTSD, this level of like depression. He wants to reflect. He's avoiding calls from Starfleet, from Mariner. He just wants to work on and you can tell that's not his forte. And his brother's trying to help.
Is he though? Is his brother trying to help?
Yes, there's a little civil rivalry, but that's just it. I think that they help support each other. What I really appreciated with this is to see Klingons outside of like fear, outside of war, just like a natural state, and showing like, yes, they farm. Someone mixes blood wine, everyone drinks. But most of the time, we're seeing Klingons in Star Trek episodes. There's some sort of anger and aggression. So it's nice to see that wholesomeness that's behind the scenes, and the acid punk, the the Klingon band. It's so nice to see that, those cultural aspects.
I liked for this storyline, because there's a B storyline for episode 4. That is just adorable. But for this storyline, I really did like the 180 is what it took between Mariner and Maha to because in season 4, when Mariner was going through her, like when they were doing like their fight to the death, and Maha sort of like helped snap Mariner out of it. This time Mariner snapped him out of it. It was like they went in tandem, they worked together. He helped her when he didn't really want to, and now she's sort of repaying him by helping him, and he's like, I don't want your help. But she's able to like get him to understand, no, you do want this. Like, it's like getting your shit back is something you should achieve to do. It's something that you do want. And she like goes through being electrocuted multiple times, because I'm gonna be honest, I ain't getting electrocuted for you, Moneca. Like, it's just not happening. I'm not doing it. I will. I'm so sorry. No, they are built different. They are built very different. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't expect you to get electrocuted for me. I just want you to know that. I don't. Don't do that. It was nice to see other throwbacks to other Klingon people that we met from season 1. To see that Mariner does still have like a foothold in this, like she still sort of has her foothold in her bad life, but she's still doing everything for the right reasons now. But she still has her connections to the people that she did all her crazy stuff with. It was nice to see that Mariner also did a good thing for a Starfleet reason. She always used to say Starfleet has like, a secret agenda or a hidden agenda, and she just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want, like, she always tried to find the real reason why Starfleet was sending them on these missions, or she always tried to sabotage herself or sabotage the mission. And this time she helped someone get back their captaincy for a secret Starfleet mission that she needed to get completed. So she was like, hey, so I sort of manipulated you this entire episode for good. Like, you got your captaincy back, but now I need you to take me to this location because the guy who you just killed, that I helped you kill by accident, I didn't mean for him to die, he wasn't going to let me do it. And that was just, that part was sort of very interesting for me to see Mariner like, oh yeah, she didn't intend for the dude to die, but she manipulated the crap out of Maha this entire episode. And I will admit, I did not see that coming. I really thought initially she was just there to assist him and help him get his captaincy back. And I was like, oh no, well, I didn't want to do that, but I also had a secret agenda. And that's something she always claims that Starfleet did in some way, shape, or form. That she always claimed that there was like some hidden agenda or something that was like underhanded about Starfleet. And now she's like, I'm doing something underhanded for Starfleet. But it wasn't a bad thing, because now we've learned that the anomalies they thought were random are not random. And so we got a little bit of an answer for like the season story that we are trying to figure out who's causing all of these time rifts, these spatial rifts. We get a little nugget of information that these are happening on purpose. And that's one thing I really like about Lower Decks is when they do a season like storyline, we get little nuggets here and there, but like it's not a whole episode to figure out one clue. And it's like in a very boring way. It's like, oh yeah, here's a very interesting storyline. Take note, Discovery from season 5, that one episode where they were doing that race, which was so boring. This episode was really funny, really interesting. And at the very end, they gave us, oh yeah, there's a spatial time rift. These are happening on purpose. So like, if you're paying attention, you're getting information for the season story arc, which I also enjoyed as well.
Yeah, I feel like she was mentoring him in a subtle way. And another character that was giving pep talks and has overcome some challenges is Boimer, because in the very last episode, he had this cultural faux pas with that paradise planet where he was eating in front of this civilization that did not like to have food like consumed in front of them. And he had forgotten that. But here, he knew all of the Klingon protocols more so than I think anyone else there. Mm-hmm. And he could call out the number and like and then he was also able to solve their ultimate challenge of how to help Mahal get to a better standing. Mm-hmm. And so that teamwork, of course, helps to save the day. But if they all merge together physically onto one body and move through it together, then they can all like take on some of this pain from the electrocution together, but get through this obstacle. And I'm really happy the way that his character has evolved in this this series of scenes.
Boimler is as that beard grows out, so does his confidence. You know, I'm just saying. Now, is it for good? Is he using every single aspect for good, or not good? Sorry, in a smart way? Because maybe I volunteer for sacrifice. No, you don't, Boimler. You don't volunteer to sacrifice yourself on a Klingon world. We're just not going to do that today. But going into the B storyline of this episode, we are learning a little bit more about another character, Dr. Migleemo. That sort of also puts his little food puns, gives us understanding about why he does so many food puns, because his whole planet is all about discovering food and finding good tasting food and eating good food. And as someone who loves to eat, I respect that. I respect the hell out of that culture of just wanting to try. They invented space travel to try more food. And I respect that. I respect doing all of this hard work just to get a better meal because it's good. And we meet two critics from his planet who are like some like the supreme critics. And they, of course, are like the mean girls. They are like rude and demeaning and disrespectful, and they're better than everyone. And the way that they eat food is sort of disgusting because it's like, really, that's just little, just use a fork and knife, honey. Or just use your hands. Like, but just that little pincher and the food just doesn't look appetizing that way. It was sad to sort of see Dr. Migleemo be demeaned by his own people. And had like the Starfleet crew was trying to stand up for him. He's like, no, it's okay. Cause like he like from his planet is like something that's expected. I'm like, but no, it's not. We're homies. They don't talk to you that way. And then to find out, then to see how much the crew really does sort of care, where they tricked the food critics into eating horrible food. Like to prove that they didn't actually know what they were talking about, that they did not have their food, that they lost their sense of taste. And now they're turning to Dr. Migleemo for help to like figure out why they lost their sense of taste. And I say it's karma for just being douchebags. But what do you think about that B storyline, Moneca?
Okay, I think you're being really nice because it wasn't just they served him horrible food; it was manure. So it's just really bad. That's the ultimate like taste bud scale. Like if you found out, if they found out,
Not gonna say they didn't deserve it, but treat people like that, maybe you should eat it.
I have problems with how this ended. And I understand that this was fun. It was lively. It was
Mhm.
on the ship, so it got the other crew involved. Great. But I'm sorry. We just can't forgive them and forget and move on. Like, no. They lied. They lied across the galaxy. All of these other, like, chefs are like, their reputations went down because of their false critiques of the food. No, they're
No.
this is where I
Moneca
say
says no.
no, there's no forgive and forget there. No.
I'm gonna be honest. As someone who cooks, who has a degree in this, those are fighting words. Put your hands up. I can't fight, but I'm gonna try. Because you're not gonna disrespect my food, and then it comes to find out that you can't even taste anything. You can't even taste anything, and you have the nerve to say my food tastes bad when when everything tastes like water to you. Go sit down. I need a retraction printed, please. Excuse me. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Shame them. What is let's get some Game of Thrones up in here. Shame. 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 You want to respect my food? Oh, okay. Those are fighting words. Just saying. Just saying. Okay, so on that note, we're gonna take a quick break. And when we come back, we're gonna discuss Starbase 80. This episode is all about the fact that the Cerritos is sort of stranded in space, which is a very creepy concept to one to think about being stranded in space, because your warp drive is not working. And so the only place that they are able to get to for repairs is Starbase 80. And everyone is freaked out about it. But none more than Mariner. She literally screams, no, the entire time. And she's like, I'm a good person. I like algae. No, I don't want to go back there. Don't send me back there. Um, and it also sort of like shows Mariner has a little bit of a weaker side in the sense of not vulnerable, sorry, not weaker, vulnerable side, because she is literally scared to go back to Starbase 80 because she was there for literally like maybe a day or two before she resigned back in season 3. And we see that she's really actually physically scared to go back to Starbase 80. She does not want any of her friends to be there. She doesn't want anyone to get stuck there. And she just wants to drift for 400 years on a pulse to the next Starbase. That is where she's at. And then we see that Starbase 80 is the redheaded stepchild of Starfleet. it is forgotten. It has the mentality of, oh, it's bad, so no one ever expects anything better. And even though the people there are trying to do better, it's like Starfleet doesn't expect anything of them, so they don't give them anything to help them be better. I have to say, when I was watching this episode the first time, I was like, oh, they're going to steal the Cerritos. I in my mind, I was like, all the people on Starbase 80 want to leave, and because they kept mentioning how they kept asking for help from Starfleet and help from Starfleet to fix things, and no one was providing any help. And now there's a starship here. I honestly thought they were distracting the crew so they could steal the ship. That's what I thought. I was like, I did not put that past them until the very end when it was actually truthful that the comm badges were the issue, not Starbase 80. But I was like, they're going to steal the ship. I was like, someone get back to the ship. That's why your comm badges aren't working, because I don't want you to get back to the ship and save it before the people steal it. That's what I thought was going to happen this episode. What are your initial thoughts, memorable moments about this episode?
I have a lot. And that's because I also noticed that this episode is funny, ironic, but then has a lot of plot holes in it. So I know that the Cerritos is second contact ship. So they are also much more engaged in helping develop infrastructure. And so I could see how this fits in. But throughout this, I was thinking, y'all can't like replicate that processor? Y'all can't use the replicator to create the processor? I don't know. There were several parts in this. And then I was thinking, you can't beam up the steps? You can't beam to the arcade? But then I'm glad that they didn't beam, because then they would have gotten this, what I call the zombie disease, right? So they would have become zombies like the rest of the crew. Overall, though, this felt like a filler to me. And because in the end, they didn't need the processor. So I felt like, oh, we really went through all of this for nothing. Although we were able to see that both Freeman and Mariner were able to overcome their preconceived notions of Starbase 80. But other than that, I was like, there's just a lot of holes here. It doesn't really make sense, but it's a fun ride.
For me, for this episode, after I got over the whole, they're going to steal the Cerritos. They're going to steal the Cerritos. Get back to the ship. They're going to steal the Cerritos. It was nice to see that there were some people on the Starbase 80 who believed in it, who was like, it can be better. We're a place of second chances. And they're trying to improve with the limited knowledge that they have. Like, they have an old gravity machine that's broken that they don't have the ability to fix themselves. And they have to go back to the original schematics and fix everything. They don't have the updated tricorders that helps people figure out things faster. It's like they don't have the comm badges. They have to use wall comms. Like Starbase 80 is like the 80s compared to the 2024. Like, they're using all the technology they have is from the 80s, and they need 2024 knowledge to help fix it. And it's like, make it make sense. I did find it sort of interesting that the chief engineer was like faking them out for a bit. I will admit, I just assumed he was like a triplet at first. And then he was like, oh no, yeah. I figured he was a triplet and they just weren't telling them that he was a triplet to like get them to fix stuff. Because after the second time they fixed something, I just felt like, okay, he's messing with them now. Like, again, get back to the ship. He's just messing with you. It was nice to see the captain and Ransom. Well, it was nice to see Ransom make the best of a bad deal when it came to like the stairs. Oh, you don't see these in space. Leg day. Look at these glutes. You getting it, Captain? Like, Ransom can find a workout in anything, and I do appreciate that. But also the captain, who was like, we still don't know why she was stationed at Starbase 80 in the other universe. But she's like, I was sit here and defeated by this place. I'm not going to be defeated again. One, we don't know you were defeated by Starbase 80 in the first place. We don't know why you were sent to Starbase 80. You assume it was a punishment. Maybe you whipped them into shape. We don't know. Like, I mean, it could have been anything. But it was very interesting to see that's their side story of them going around and fixing a lot of the things in the ship and helping the chief engineer Jabberwocky or something like that fix it. Though it was also weird that he wasn't able to fix it himself. But it's like, did they really? Is he a competent chief engineer? Because again, he's in Starbase 80. It's not the creme de la creme. It's a lot of times you get sent there because you messed up so many other places, and it's like, can you get better without the correct help?
But that's just it. It doesn't seem like they have a training program. There's no career ladder there. It's the place that people that may have failed in other places and get reprimanded go. But we know that the Federation has lots of resources and money. I mean, they gave a lot of money to Tendy's family. So, but they're just not properly resourcing this area.
Yeah.
Which,
it's the redheaded stepchild.
yeah, I I have concerns I don't like. Also in this, we learn out that the parasite, they named the parasite Clem, and it was inhabiting the dolphins that were spreading this electromechanical power through the computer system to the comm badges to the crew, and then they were spreading it down to Starbase 80. So they were spreading the disease that way. Okay, so fast forwarding to the end, where they find out that Clem has these bosses, and they're gonna like restrict him. Though they're gonna keep him there, but restrict him to a certain area. And I'm like, that never works.
Never.
Shouldn't you kill off this parasite, or shouldn't you? I don't know. I feel like we've also seen scenes in other Star Trek series in which there's a parasite that takes over a body that then wreaks havoc across. So, come on, Cerritos. Come on, versus Starbase 80. Let's cut this off and make sure this doesn't spread any. But who knows? We could see this again further down the storyline.
I think it was supposed to be sort of fun. It's also, I think it was supposed to change the narrative that we have about Starbase 80, because it was really the Starbase 80 crew that saved the day at the end of the day. Because like all of the Cerritos crew were parasitic zombies by accident. And we have Chad, who slings corn dogs and saved the day and distracted them so they could get to where they needed to go to stop Clem from taking over. It was very interesting to see Starbase 80 save the day. And hopefully this means that the Cerritos will then like, hey, higher ups at Starfleet, send Starbase 80 like a crew to help them clean up the ship. Because if the Cerritos was able to fix so many things in that ship in just the short amount of time that they were there, imagine what would happen if a dedicated crew came for like 2 months and it was like, the only thing you're going to do there is fix all the minor issues. You're going to like do a retrofit upgrade. Like, why is Starbase 80 still using wall comms when comm badges, like, why is their tech so out of date? Like, Starfleet is feeding into the issue that is Starbase 80. So
Right.
I
So
think this should help.
on the positive, if they weren't so low tech, then they would have gotten infected by the zombies too, this parasite. I would guess it would go through to like, so I felt like it was this debate. Low tech end up saving high tech in this case. But I would feel better about this episode if at least Captain Freeman or someone submitted a report to the Federation basically stating SOS, Starbase 80 needs resources, help. like,
Yeah.
like, and they're way out of our, if they were attacked or something, they would not be able to help themselves. So, that's why I feel like this was a filler, because in the end, I feel like they're even worse off because now they have Clem there and the Cerritos is going to leave, and they're also not going to have additional resources to help the engineer, help everyone else, because they
Well,
don't even have a replicator for their food.
well, we did see the Cerritos did fix a lot of stuff. And
Okay.
we saw that the Captain Freeman and Ransom went after the bats.
Yeah, we don't have closure there, but we hope that they, yes,
Yeah, we hope like they are not worse off. They're not worse off, but
okay.
are they 100%? Like if they were at like a 10% when Cerritos got there, they're probably running at like a 50% right now.
But they have Clem now.
They do, but Clem's also apologized for what he did. He didn't mean to do it. He was just trying to prove a point to his bosses. Now, could he have been lying? Did he remind me of Agamemnon, that guy? Just slightly. He reminded me of him slightly. But I'm just hoping that he doesn't try and take over, and will be fine being confined to the space where he can talk to people physically, because before he couldn't talk. That's one of the reasons why he took over, because he did not know how to speak to people, and now he does. So at least he wasn't taking them over to try and steal the ship. He was taking them over and using them as like his nerve endings to feel and to communicate and talk, which was weird and disgusting because you were having them lick so many gross stuff. But Clem could also maybe provide some knowledge that they don't have.
Yeah, true.
I hope though that this is not the last time that we see some of the people from Starbase 80.
Yes.
El-Aurian. Um, I want to see her again because she was peppy and happy, and she reminded me of like early Beckett from like the flashbacks we get of Beckett when before Beckett got like sort of jaded. Um, when she was younger, she reminded me of her, and I hope we get to see her again at some point in this season.
I agree with you. I actually looked up her character because I was intrigued by her.
Mhm.
I also like the fact that she was wearing an older generation uniform from the uh, USS Enterprise. So even in the timeline before the original series. And so her character is the same species as Whoopi Goldberg's character from Star Trek Next Generation.
Mhm.
And so I find that fascinating. I would like to learn more about them. And they're active listeners. Like that species focuses on listening and observing and understanding. And yeah, I would like to see her. And I also found Chad amusing, and the Dr. Hesselberry. I found like they were nice, like fillers. They help support, and it shows that like they are able to work outside of their normal jobs. I felt like Chad was like the Boimer, like he was he was like, I'll be the distraction over here while you guys do that. It reminded me of like the Borg episode.
That episode when Boimler was stuck in the Borg, they almost assimilated him. That was almost a sad day. But anyway, I do agree with you. They were a fun distraction, and this did feel like a filler episode, but I feel like for the most part, Lower Deck has a way of incorporating filler episodes in the last, and like when they do the explanations at the end. And because there were like the side episodes of from season 3 where Mariner was supposed to get people to sign up for Starfleet on that during that fair, and we see and we meet the archaeologist. We see her later in the season, and she helps play a pivotal role later. So I feel like for Lower Decks, when there is a filler episode, they do have a way of bringing someone from that filler episode back into like the wrap up. And so I'm hoping we get to see that, and I'm hoping it's the El-Aurian, because she was awesome, and I love how she's like, I'm only 30 years old, and Beck is like, a 30-year-old El-Aurian is just a regular person. Which is true. You're like, stop saying the thing about your race that makes you cool if you're only 30. say it when you're 110 and you still look like you're 30.
Yeah, I felt like they were the scrappy underdogs. They are like another version of the Lower Deckers, like behind the scenes, that's not well appreciated, but have there's expectations for them. They don't seem to have a clear leader, and
That's true.
I would be comfortable if there was some sort of like a mini series. I'm not sure. Not a movie, and maybe not a series, but maybe like a short trek where we learn more about Starbase 80, and there's some offshoot stories with this.
I would enjoy that. I would watch that. Any final thoughts before we end this episode?
Lower decks, lower decks, lower decks. We have 5 more episodes.
I cannot wait to see where. I want to see what this ending is. I'm excited. I'm nervous and excited. So, thank you for joining us. And as always, live long and prosper.